microphone? Yeah. You ever seen one of those before?
Yeah. This is such a great microphone. I feel like a lounge act from late 60s.
You just hold it between
Sinatra, right? Yeah, I'm extending my pinky like it's tea time.
Finger. This is Chris Schlarb. I'm here with my friend Mike Baggetta.
Okay.
I wanted to I was thinking about this question for weeks. Do you ever just play like just a G chord, like just a regular thing, or does everything you play have to be fancy?
I actually played I played G quite a bit, actually.
Yeah, just no extensions.
No, yeah, no extensions. Yeah, right. G. Yeah, this, like this one, that one.
He just made the G shape, the weird G shape.
The big real G. We're off to a great start.
So we're getting ready to, next week we're doing a tour with Watt and Hodges. The record, Wall of Flowers, that we made with Keltner comes out tomorrow, actually, officially.
That's right. Well, today is Thursday the 14th.
Right.
So it comes out tomorrow the 15th, but our listeners
they'll hear it the 18th or something like that. So it will have been out, and if they haven't bought it, then, shame on them. But we will have it on tour. We're going around the country from the 21st to the 30th, I think.
Yeah, March 21st to March 30th, all across the United States of America.
Yeah.
Amazing. Somehow, yeah, whether we like it or not.
But I feel like I've had a lot of thoughts about like the creation of the record, because it actually had it actually has like some stories behind it, which I love.
For sure.
Because I feel like most people are boring and their records are boring, and like there's never any like drama or tension or risk, you know what I mean? And one of the things that I really loved about making this record, and this is what I think about all the time, is that very first night when you got here and you told me like, okay, hey, just press record and I'm gonna do some shit.
Oh, we did a day of solo tracking for some of the solo stuff. Yeah, right. Yeah,
And then I left.
Right. Yeah.
And went to go get something to eat.
Yeah.
And then I came back and hadn't recorded anything at all.
Okay, but now I feel like this is the moment where you finally tell me the truth about that situation, because I have my own ideas.
Yeah.
And just to set the stage for what really happened.
We're going down the rabbit hole quick.
Well, first of all, what's interesting is that I never, we've been friends for a number of years at this point.
Yeah.
And I feel like I've learned a lot from you about kind of the idea of production and, just things of that nature that I sort of thought about but never really had maybe been close enough to anybody that has done a lot of that stuff that I could sort of ask about, like what actually is this or whatever.
Yeah.
But my albums have never had like a quote unquote producer. I've never worked with anybody on that level. It's been my music. I go in, I record it. I know how I want my music to sound.
You hire the musicians.
All that kind of stuff. I handle all the logistic kind of things, which has never been that big of a problem for what I've done. And so in my mind, I was like, great, yeah, we're going to do a day of solo stuff. I've got all this stuff I could work on and these ideas I want. So I came in and set up, and you were like, all right, well, what should we do? And I was like, yeah, I guess I'll just play for a couple hours and we'll just kind of slice it up.
Yeah.
And I think you were maybe a little like crestfallen. Would that be the correct word?
Crestfallen. I was just like, this motherfucker, what the fuck are you, what am I even here for? This is basically what's going through my mind. It's like, I'm not your engineer. I'm not here to just press record and then have my little hands folded at the console and look out with little stars in my eyes at how brilliant everything you play is.
Wow. This is so deep. Geez, man, I was just no, but it was also kind of like, to me, it was also like, I think everybody works differently too.
Right. Totally.
And we had never worked together.
That's right.
In any capacity, really, besides just hanging out, if you consider that work, which sometimes it seems
Depends
to
on the
be.
company.
But so partially, I guess, in my mind too, I was like, well, he'll tell me if it's cool or if it's not cool.
Right.
But I guess all I can do is just do what I do.
Yeah.
So I did that, and you split, and I played the greatest stuff for like 7-8 hours something.
No.
No, I improvised. Yeah,
Broil. I came back.
yeah, it was maybe an hour and a half, something like that. And I was kind of playing a bunch of things, and it was recording. And you came back, and I kind of stopped, and I came back in, and I was like, all right, let's check some of it out. And you go, you're pressing buttons, doing all this stuff. It didn't record. I can't find. I was recording when I left. And it's not here anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know where it is. And I was like, what? This guy.
But I believe your actual quote that I remember is, "You got to be shitting me."
That sounds realistic.
I believe that. And then I would think you went to the couch in the lobby and you just sat down and you didn't say anything for about 20 minutes.
What I do remember is I was like, I need to take a walk. And I was like, maybe you can find it.
Yeah.
And I went out and I like walked around the block a few times and I was like, man, all right. Well, whatever, it's not the end of the world, we'll figure this out. And then I came back, and then we started talking about stuff.
Yes.
And then I think we were kind of like, because while I was playing the other stuff, I had some other ideas, and I was like, oh, maybe I'll see what he thinks about this. And at that point, we started kind of bouncing ideas off of each other.
Totally.
And at that point, I kind of got like the importance of a good producer. Because, I'll just try things. I'll just do stuff all the time. And then I listen back and I go, oh, that's cool. That's not cool. I don't like this. But what was great about, I think, the way that we work together is that we both have those thoughts. Oh, this would be a great idea. Let's try it and see what happens.
Yeah.
But then when we speak that way to each other, what we end up with is a different idea that's inspired by both of those things that maybe we wouldn't have had on our own. Mm-hmm. And I think that when that happened, that was when it clicked. I was like, oh, this is why a good producer is important.
Yeah.
I should find one for my next record.
Yeah. No, I can give you some recommendations. And also what I remember too was like, I think after all that stuff, I put up a room mic, and then I started just listening to the room mic, which was, I think maybe you were playing like one of the first things that I remember is kind of like after we sort of like had that little like breakthrough was like I think maybe you were playing like the dobro or something, and I put up a room mic, the KSM 32, and I just started sending that to like the plate reverb. And then I don't remember or not if you could hear it, but I was just like, holy shit, this sounds really cool and different. It doesn't sound like like a guitar record. It's like these are sounds, you know what I mean? This is a cool like vibe. This is a mood,
Yeah.
And at that point, I felt like really engaged,
Right.
like, okay, hey, we're both kind of pulling our weight now. We're both bringing something to the table here. It's not just me sitting back here, like looking out, like patting myself on the back, like I own a studio. It's like, no, I get to work now on your behalf.
Yeah. And that's the best of all worlds coming together,
Yeah.
Now the postscript, however, though, is that after the solo day and then the trio day and this and that, I go home and I get to check out the files, and all that original material is there. So I start thinking like, okay, either this is like the mother of all technological strangeness, or he pulled a super long con.
Well,
Telling me that he couldn't find it to manufacture a situation to get us both engaged
There we go.
in the process.
That's a real producer.
And at the same time, I was like, I can't believe he did that. And he might be a genius. But to this day, I don't really know.
I'll be honest, I don't either. there's an element to it where I'm like, maybe, I don't know, maybe
Maybe it was.
maybe it was, maybe it disappeared. I mean, one of the, maybe now it's back, I don't know.
What would be funny is that if I go to listen to it after this,
and it was gone again. Yeah, I mean, this is the thing, we need uncertainty, you know what I mean?
You never know. That's what makes it exciting. That's the drama.
You know, this may fall short in the history of like great producer stories too, like somebody like the great Bob Ezrin, who on the wall told his own children that their mother had died so that he could record them crying. And that shit is on the record.
Are you for real?
Totally for real. That's next level shit, you know?
Yeah.
So
but
I
I don't feel like that's beyond you.
No, it's not. But I mean, you gotta learn from the best. I might do it to somebody else's kids. I don't think I'd do it to my own kids.
Yeah.
You know?
That's a lack of commitment, though.
It just really depends on how much I'm paid for a record. Do you want me to lie to my own children? Listen, I need 5 points
gonna be
on this album. Yeah. I lied to them already. I told them I'm a professional.
I wish I had a drum.
Yeah, that was a good one. Anyway, so we get through the day of solo recording. We get into the trio day, which had its own drama, tremendous drama from my vantage point.
I remember almost no drama.
Well, I think here's from my
I actually
perspective.
remember about that everybody meeting and hitting it off right away, and everything was like super smooth.
I don't think there were any problems with like personalities. It was like
Yeah, not at all.
no, not at all.
So cool.
For me, it was like maybe like the difficulty of like the material that you brought and the expectation of recording like seven.
I forgot that I wrote a ton of music for
Yes.
this.
And so
I actually
isn't
forgot.
it funny
yeah.
how that shit
Yeah,
works?
I wrote a ton of material.
Yeah, there was like 7 or 8 songs.
There was 8 things.
Yeah, and you were like, yeah, we can get through all of it. And I was like, I don't think that.
Yeah, because
we're
why
gonna
not?
do
Because
that.
I've always done that.
Right.
Why not?
Yeah, and I was like, well, that may not happen today, you know? And so in here, on the other side of the glass, I'm just thinking like every time we don't get through a song, there's 7 more. How on earth could we ever get through all of them?
Yeah, so I wrote, I guess, a lot of material that was sort of, I don't know, what should we say, like kind of reading intensive sort of stuff with a couple little, little meter, nothing. I'm not like a crazy, like, odd meter,
Sure.
Steve Coleman kind of craziness,
Right.
which I enjoy from time to time, but that's not really my sort of aesthetic anyways. But I just had these kind of grooves that I had thought about and written out, and yeah, I forgot all about that. But, we got through a couple of those tunes, though, reading,
Right.
and it was cool.
And then we made the
We made
pivot.
charts, but in the back of my mind, anyways, I was like, oh, well, we'll just improvise and I'll make that work.
Right. Yeah. And
Because even before we got here, I remember saying like, make sure there's some time for us to just sort of play, and
Right.
we can deal with that in some way on the record, And we got through like we got through Hospital Song, maybe we did a bunch of takes.
That's right. Yep.
And that's an interesting thing, kind of just the way different people work differently. Like I'm used to having a bunch of written music thrown at me
reading it down
from different people who write really challenging stuff, perhaps or not. But I'm
and
just
you do a little bit of homework ahead of time, and then
Yeah.
you bring all of your skills and talents to it, and you're like, now I do it.
Yeah, I'm
right
just
now.
used to that thing of like you read through and you just sort of you work with that. And it was sort of unbeknownst that maybe Watt is not used to the sort of chart reading kind of thing as much. So just sort of a different way of learning the tunes that is a little more time intensive, but probably yields a lot more like sonic, soulful commitment to the actual playing of the music too.
Right,
you know,
yeah.
I mean,
this is the interesting thing about how it worked.
Everything we played was completely internalized at that point.
Yeah.
Which takes time, of course, right? And I hadn't really kind of put that together either. So it was a cool thing to kind of learn from.
It's interesting because in some ways it was almost more of like I feel like everything with Watt is that he like wants it to be a band. Every group,
I love that.
Every group is a band. And that's so different.
He's the reason we're doing any gigs at all.
I know.
It's so amazing.
Yeah. But that you don't get that without that commitment. Like a kind of your normal session guy, he doesn't give a shit, right?
Right.
Comes in, punches his card, and he's like off to the next thing. Watt like sent me like that beautiful like poetic email afterward talking about like what it was like to do the session. And like, it to him, it's like this is something this was a big deal. You know what I mean?
It was a big deal, yeah. And I mean, and like Jim too, man. Like, he was there, like, geez, 1,000%.
Totally.
Every take. Let's do it again. You want to do it again? Absolutely. Can we try this? Of course. What if we try this? He's thrown idea. It was like musically. It couldn't have been like a better situation on all counts, even though on the surface level there was a thing like, oh, we didn't get through these 5 tunes.
Right.
But it didn't matter because it really played into the other thing that I think about, which is when you have like really great, truly great musicians, not like good musicians, but like truly great musical, souls.
Yeah.
It comes down to listening, and it comes down to trust, and it comes down to like, confidence to some degree to try things.
Yeah.
And it all, more often than not, you're gonna get something great. And you don't even know what it is. So I was kind of at that point. I was like, I bet if we improvise, right? We took a break or something.
Yep. Yeah, we had.
And then I was like,
mole for lunch. And
hey, let's just. Would you guys want to try to do some free stuff? And they were down.
Yeah.
And then went on for like 3 hours.
Right.
And there's so much awesome stuff.
Yeah.
From that, I remember we did like, 15, 20 minutes, and we stopped, and you came in, and we didn't even really say. You came over to me, and I was like, that was great. This should be the record, right? And you're like, yeah, go. And then you came back in and kept rolling, and we just like did another 2.5, 3 hours. It was incredible.
So this was the other interesting thing is that the sort of the structure of that session was so wild emotionally for me because in the beginning I'm thinking make everybody comfortable, do my, try to do my producerly thing, make sure Jim likes the sounds of the drums that we're getting, you know what I mean? Like all of that kind of stuff. And I remember at one point he hits like the rack tom and he just goes, would you listen? That's the craziest thing I ever heard. And I couldn't tell like if it was good or bad.
Yeah, he didn't assign quality.
He was brilliant. He did one of the most gangster things that anybody's done in the studio. He had headphones, and instead of saying he didn't like what he was hearing, he just goes, "Hey, could you take a listen to this?"
Yeah.
It was just the most pro move, not aggressive, not condescending. The classic kind of like the invisible, like curtain pulled back. Hey, I don't have to insult you or make a judgment. Could you check this out and you tell me what you think?
Yeah.
It was just
noted.
Yeah, and I was just kind of like, whoa, that was great.
We remember that.
And I was like, oh yeah, this sounds like shit. But if he'd said like, hey, this sounds like shit, I'd been like, damn, Jim Keltner said.
Right.
Even if it was just a headphone mix, you know what I mean?
That guy's my hero.
Yeah, I mean, just to be in his proximity, and kind of like to feel, I don't know, I mean, I don't feel this way, but I feel like he made me feel like we were his peers, even though we're not, or I don't feel like I am.
Yeah, it was very comforting.
Yeah.
Which was great for me, because I mean, I got to try to play with this guy.
Right.
Which is probably going to be super easy just because
Yeah, because he's just
we've all played along to like a billion great records that he's on, kind of a
Right.
thing. So you're already kind of used to it in a way.
yeah.
But you're not at the same time. I don't know. It's like when you get to, I was thinking about this the other day. I usually don't think about this stuff because I feel like it's a little counterproductive, but I was thinking about some of like my favorite musical opportunities that I've somehow been fortunate enough to be involved in.
Yeah.
I still have no idea how some of these things happen, but I always go in kind of like, I'm the kind of person that'll sort of amp myself up for it. Like I'll kind of psych myself out a little bit. I'll overthink stuff.
Oh, right.
I want to be over-prepared.
Sure.
But in the process of doing that, I mentally kind of get a little too active about it, maybe.
Okay.
So I kind of get into a situation. I'm like, oh, okay, I hope everything's going to be okay. Kind of,
Right.
But, 9 times out of 10, you get into the situation, and the people that are around you for those kinds of projects are always so generous and so like heartful, soulful, warm, giving personalities. I mean, there are obviously people that are not like that, but those are sort of the immemorable people, the ones that I'm really thankful to have the opportunity to work with and stuff. It's always that response from them. There's never any thought of like, oh, I'm different than you.
Right. Yeah.
Even though clearly there is a large difference, even if it's just in time and experience or whatever.
It's just a kind of generosity of spirit, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but it's also the understanding, though, again, that like we have to do this thing that is not going to come out good if there is not that generosity of
Totally.
spirit, as
Yep.
you say. If that's not there,
Yep.
you're not going to get quality.
That's true.
It's not the way this works. This isn't like you're baking a cake or what. I don't even know.
Yeah.
That's a bad analogy.
Well, but something
whatever.
like that, it's usually a solo project, right? Like it's like, you know what I'm saying?
Not
Like,
for me.
You
I have a team.
yeah, it's a baking team.
Yeah.
Back in
Checking
Knoxville.
the gluten percentage of the flour.
So what I was going to say was that to me the arc of the session was really interesting because it kind of started off with what I felt was like a kind of like a hill or a mountain to climb, which was Hospital Song, where Watt had to sort of, I remember he was like, okay, like when is that bar of 5 or that bar of 7 or whatever it is in that tune?
It's all in 4/4 time.
No, it's not. There's a part in it that's weird.
I promise you.
No, give me the goddamn chart right now, you liar. So he was like, okay,
Everyone
kind
listening,
of like,
it's all in 4/4 time.
I'm gonna put the chart out. But I remember like kind of like, once we finally got that take and then we kind of like went into like the improv stuff after lunch, like it was almost like if let's say we'd started with improv,
Yeah.
it would have been totally different.
Yeah.
The improv was now the kind of like reaction, release, response
Maybe, yeah.
to the structured stuff. And it kind of works that way on the record as well. The record starts with Hospital Song, ends with Wall of Flowers. And there's the 2 versions of Blue Velvet in there. And then the longer...
You know what I just realized? The whole record from front to back is like one tune. Like you have the head, and then you have the improvisation, and then you have the closing.
Right, yeah.
Oh my God.
Wow, man.
Why didn't we think of
I mean, I thought about that from,
Could have been using
that
this.
was in my production
From the
notes.
moment you told
Yeah.
me nothing had recorded.
It was all there. Yeah, that's interesting though.
That is interesting. Huh.
But you know what I'm saying? Like that there was
Yeah, for
there was
sure,
that
yeah.
neat kind
Oh,
of
yeah.
like, it's sort of like I always think about this, like if you ever do a song or you're performing or you're recording and you fuck something up in a solo or in a part, what you play right after that is kind of the shit because
It has to be.
you know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
It's always the thing where you're like, God damn it, and then you're like, I feel free now. It's like I can make a mistake.
Well,
So you take a
actually, for that is some of it. But for me personally, right after I make the error, in as such as I would ever want to call that an error, then I think I don't think like, oh, now I'm free to whatever. I mean, hopefully I've already felt like that, but I think I have to turn that into something great.
Oh, right.
That's the immediate thought after. Like if I play something unintentional or something that might be like quote unquote wrong, I go, okay, make it work.
Right.
And that's inevitably I slow myself down, which is what I wish I could always do from any time I play. My goal, I'm always wishing I could slow everything down when I'm playing. So if I make a mistake, it actually happens faster that I would slow myself down.
Right.
I mean, it happens more readily that I would slow myself down.
But I kind of feel like in a macro view, that's what happened on that session.
Yeah,
Because
right. Yeah, it's like
it was sort of like the tension of like getting the take, kind of like, when you're running a session, it's like that first song, the first thing that you record has to kind of serve multiple functions. Like it has to be good psychologically so that the people recording feel like, man, this sounds great. We sound great already.
Right.
And we look how quickly we got through that, but then when we get to the improv stuff, I felt like from Watt, it was just like, oh, this weight off his shoulders, like, oh, I don't have to read anything. I just start playing, and this kind of like molten lava bass thing just starts coming out of him, and then Keltner just starts responding to that, and then you're just like, holy shit, now it's like real. It's like now we're a band,
Yeah. I don't know that I thought about it that much. Like,
I think it's subliminal.
It's hard to say what anybody else was feeling or thinking or something, but that could be very well it. All I know is that, I don't know, at the end of the day, I was like, for myself, I was like, see, I knew it was going to work. Because the whole thing,
self-effacing, Baggetta,
the whole thing was like
compliment to himself. See, I'm a genius. I knew it all along.
You have such a way of filtering things through your own perspective of yourself. It's so interesting. No, but like the story I've been telling to outlets and stuff or whatever, which is a true story, is like when we started talking about this project, it was like I was totally kind of joking. You were like, you want to make a record, who do you want to do it with? I was like, oh, wouldn't it be hilariously amazing, historically epic,
right,
to do something like my music with Jim and Mike? And we laughed and laughed. And then we were like, all right, think it over, get back to me when you're ready to get serious. But it was kind of always half joking.
And that's funny because I think I sort of felt like you were like on the fence a little bit, and I was like, oh, well, I'll force his hand.
Yeah,
like, I'll get them together.
Which is great.
And it's like, well, now what?
Right, you're like, you want to mess with me? Okay, let me show you.
Yeah, I just talked to Jim Keltner. He's brushing his teeth, and he said he's in.
And I go, wait, really? Yeah, I mean, and then over the next year or something, we kind of were like, well, actually, could we actually do this?
Right.
And then over the next year, you made it happen.
And it kind of all corresponded with the studio. Mm-hmm. It was just this kind of perfect storm. In
everything for you in your life aligned to help me make this record.
Right. Yeah, it's true. So yeah, it's a good thing we got 2 albums out of it.
We'll
allegedly.
See. Yeah. That was supposed to be a secret.
It's all right. Nobody listens to this anyway. It's still a secret. we could give the details of the JFK assassination.
Right.
Nobody would give a shit.
Yeah, that 9/11 thing. Let me tell you about that.
Yeah. I'm curious for you, sort of having gotten, sort of had the record in your back pocket, and then now you see the vinyl, I'm kind of wondering for you, because your day to day of playing gigs, teaching, and working, kind of I know for me there's